Onwards then to Huddersfield Town, and there's not a huge amount to discuss for Town really in terms of not a great deal has changed. We still don't have a clue about who's going to be the new manager in the long term. The season's fizzling out to nothing, and as I said earlier on, it's 5 straight defeats for the Terriers. I mean, the latest result being Saturday, Downser.
Yeah, obviously the Leeds lads might come in for their half-time review, so we'll probably have to split the town section in half.
We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. Let's just. I don't think they're coming on, are they? I don't think
what time did it kick off?
It's only half an hour in. Let's get Town done. We can be
Town done
before they get here.
All right, cool. Yeah. Exeter, obviously, long trip down there, in it for an absolute dead rubber. They had no to play for because they're safe. We had no to play for because we couldn't get the playoffs. Am I surprised that we lost? No, not really. Karoma scored the opening goal. Good finish, actually. Really, typical Karoma, sort of like gets it on the wing, runs at his full-back quick and then slows it down and curls it into the bottom corner. Typical Karoma finish. We've seen him do it over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And then once again, just the whole tempo of the match, we just decided to go to crap, really. I mean, Exeter's goals, 2 of them could have been saved better by Chapman. He doesn't cover himself in a lot of glory for that because obviously Nichols was taken back out the side, Chapman put back in the side, and I think he would have been saying, to himself, I've got a chance, I'm back in now. I've got a chance in these last 2 games to show why I really should be number 1 next season. And if Nichols does go, obviously he's out of contract, so there's a big chance that Chapman will be number 1, unless we decide to bring a keeper in. So yeah, not good. Defending was poor again, and it's just like I just feel sorry for the poor sods that have gone nearly 800 miles to just watch it. It's just. There's some dedicated souls there that have watched the club for over 40 years, and just a way it's like it's not really the club that's dying in front of them, but it's like the football side is. For some of these fans that have watched us for 30, 40 years to say it's the worst football we've seen ever at Town, and we've seen some crap, by the way, like we've been down in League 2, but sometimes they're the best memories. Being in like where you go to these absolute horrible holes and get wins and sort of like create memories. But this season it's just not at it. And Exeter's just the whole match was a bit like an emphasis of how the entire season's gone, Chris, really. And Worthy again after the game was like, I don't really know what the lad's supposed to say now. He's just been asked again if he's going back to his academy job, which he said that he was, and he was looking forward to that. Supposedly, there might be a director of football coming in the next week or so, from what I understand. I don't know who that is, by the way. I haven't got any knowledge on that. But it would be interesting to see if that does happen. I think it does need to happen as quick as possible. And then get the whoever the manager is going to be in place. But by God, it's a depressing end to this season, and I can't wait for it to be finished against Leyton Orient after the final whistle.
There we go. That'll do. That'll pretty much about do. But I mean, let's touch on that because obviously for Leyton Orient at the weekend, back at the Johnson Stadium for the final game of the season. And Leyton Orient have got everything to play for because, of course, they are level on points as it stands with Reading. It's a straight shootout between Orient and Reading as to who will take that final playoff place. So everything to play for them at the Johnson Stadium, even if not for Town.
Yeah, listen, big credit there to Leyton Orient and Richie Wellens. I mean, he's gone there and he's done really well on here as manager. Yeah, I don't think many had them in the top 6. At the beginning of the season, I think people thought that they might do all right, but definitely not top 6. Reading, it's just incredible what Nolan's done. Genuinely, he's incredible. And if there isn't a football fan in the country that doesn't give him credit, they don't know what football is.
Could not stand him as a player. He was a freaking horrible player.
Yeah, he was.
Hated him, but
he was a decent player.
He isn't doing a bad job as a manager.
No, I think he's doing better than a decent job. I mean, with all the stuff behind the scenes, and
To be fair,
you
though,
know,
Ruben Sellers had Reading around the playoffs as well before he went to
yeah,
Hull and was replaced. So
yeah, but also you have to say that Reading have lost their two best players in January,
yeah,
in the striker and was the other lad the centre back?
like
Can't
Tyler
remember.
Binden. Yeah,
Yeah, so they lost their two best players, and they didn't replace them. Definitely not, because they couldn't spend anything because they were under an embargo. So I think we'll get absolutely trounced by Leyton Orient. I can see it being well. We once lost to Brentford 5-1, and that was at the end of the promotion season to the Premier League. I can see it being something like that. They are going to come on Saturday and attack the hell out of us because they'll be desperate to get in there. And it's a big chance for them.
Play
Whether
good
they'll
football
do,
as well, Downsy.
yeah,
yeah. I mean, the thing for them is like, are they going to do as well next season? Don't know. Will they have their players nicked? Yes, probably so. And will Richie Wellens be looked at for a better job? Definitely so. I mean, I'd take him at Town, really. I think he's one of them players anywhere. When he were on the pitch, he got people going, didn't he? He was an old style sort of,
centre
you know,
mid. Yeah,
he's a funny one, isn't he,
bollocks
Richie Wellens? He's a real
You know,
funny
he-
one because he's done really well at some clubs and then not done particularly well at others. I mean, you look at
Yeah, but
Oldham, you look at Leyton Orient, where he's absolutely blasted it, and then you look at like Doncaster and Salford. Although I know at Salford, Gary Neville says his two biggest regrets are sacking
yeah.
Richie Wellens and Graham Alexander.
yeah.
But he's a funny one, Wellens. He really is.
I mean, I know that I don't want to get back onto full City chat, but obviously that's kind of the same a little bit for Grant McCann, in it. He's done well at Donny, and then he went to Hull and was horrific, and then he's gone back to Donny. So some people just suit different type of clubs, don't they?
Yeah.
But I just think we'll get trounced, Chris. I genuinely think it'll be a 4-0, something like that. Because our lads can't be bothered. You can just tell they're just not. Some of them are just on the beach. I mean, genuine to God, what I'd do if I were worthy, I'd just play the kids on Saturday and go, lads, just have fun with it. Like, there's no tactics. You just go and have if we lose 9-0, who gives a crap? We're not going to go anywhere in the league.
Reading fans will complain bitterly.
Yeah, of course they will. But my point, I'm not really fussed about Reading, and I'm not that fussed about Leyton Orient. I'm more fussed about us, and to be honest, it'd be a good experience for our young lads to go out there and have a taste of what an actual EFL fixture's all about. I know you can't do that for the rules, can you? You've got to play a certain amount of players, but yeah, it's all about off the field for Town and getting that sorted, and
The other thing with Richie Wellens that I didn't mention is that we obviously Oldham and where he's done well and Leyton Orient. He obviously took Swindon up as well, didn't he? I forgot to mention Swindon.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
three good jobs: Oldham, Leyton Orient, Swindon. 2 disasters: Donny and Salford.
Yeah, it's not a bad record, is it? Really.
And of course, a positive from a 9-0 defeat for Town Downsy would be that if Lincoln can get a result and beat Wrexham weekend, Lincoln would finish higher than Huddersfield in the table.
I'm really not bothered, Chris. I'm really not bothered.
He is.
I'm not. I really are. In a season where it now means absolutely naff all, I am really not bothered. What I am bothered about is that the eight out of contract players leave the football club as quickly as possible. That's what I am bothered about. And the other 6 or 7 on 1-year deals that are absolutely wastes of space, we get them out the door and all as quick as possible. But might be dreaming on that one. It's obviously Chris Maxwell retired.
Yes.
He's had a difficult season, problem with his heart, and he's not really played because of certain injuries and stuff like that. So, from what I understand, very intelligent guy, doing his directorship sort of course or whatever it's called at the FA. So I think we will probably see him in and around the football world at some club, doing behind the scenes, whether that's being leading scouting or being a director of football or something. Because apparently he has got a bit up top and he knows what he's doing. So
Fair play.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Wow.
Gaz, I think have you got a couple of quick little bits for Downsy just before we move on?
Just really quick ones based on stuff you said there, Downsy. You mentioned about the goalkeeper situation and Lee Nichols being in and out of the team. Are you a Town now in a situation where they don't really have, or they don't know who the first choice keeper is? Because Lee Nichols was always quite highly rated by you and obviously, well, fans of other clubs as well. He was seen as a top keeper, wasn't he? And obviously, I know you've had a young lad come in who's really done really well for you. But are you in that? The first one is, are you in that situation now where it's a bit 50-50 who the first choice is? The second question I was going to say is, you mentioned a director of football coming in. Are we now, therefore, looking at what we talked about last week, that a director of football will come in before a manager comes in?
So on the Nichols thing, I still think there's plenty of people. There's some that don't. Obviously, you get that in all fan groups, but the majority still think Nichols is a decent keeper. Very much for sure for this level. The differences between the two are, Nichols is an old school type where he's great at shot stopping. You know, he comes and catches the ball, gets his. You know, he's really sort of big and imposing, but he's slow. He don't get attacks going, and his kicking's never been the best. Where Chapman's more of a modern style, where he likes to get the play on going, and he's quite quick to release the ball. His distribution's absolutely fantastic. I mean, Chris will have watched him at Rochdale, and he's got great feet as a goalkeeper, but he does make these errors. And I know when we say not young, I mean he's 24, but in goalkeeper world, that is still quite youngish, isn't it? Really, he's a bit of he's a teenager, isn't he? He's coming into his prime, sort of thing. So Nichols is out of contract. I don't think the club will offer him a new contract.
Right.
So I expect him to leave, and I think Chapman will be number one, barring the fact that if we'll have to sign two goalkeepers or at least one, whether it's a backup to Chapman or a more experienced lad to replace Maxwell. So
you would certainly think that a new face in the dugout will have ideas of bringing them, somebody that they will want anyway, and Chapman and whoever that can be will battle it out for that number one spot. You would expect.
Yeah, I would say so. But there's nothing wrong with Chappers. I mean, he's a really committed lad. That's the one thing I will say. He don't do anything half-hearted, and it's just a shame that he's made a few errors. Not many across the season in the games that he's played, but in the last game he certainly led to it.
That Bolton game, wasn't it? I think that
the
key one in particular.
It was, Chris.
The second question then from Gaz, which was about the sporting director or director of football, and then we're going to see him in before the manager, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's what we're going with.
Any names, any irons in the fire as to who it is? I know Stuart Webber was talked about last week, and is it Chris Markham who was at Bolton?
Well, Chris Markham makes the one that makes the obvious choice because he's the Town fan. He's a Town fan, and his dad's a Town fan. And they have been to games. I'm sure Chris Markham would love to be director of football at Town. It'd be like a dream job for him, wouldn't it? Really, being a Town fan, and especially if he gets it right. Can you imagine being the director of football that gets your club back to the Championship, and you're a fan of the club? It couldn't be better, could it? Really. I'm sure they've got eyes on other people. Whether it's, I just want it to be from this country. I don't really, or a top scout maybe in Europe or something that could step up. I don't want it to be from America again. I'll be absolutely honest, unless they've got proper. Well, because that's what Matt Cartwright was. He was from Stoke. He did Stoke, but then he went to America for 4 years. I think you've got to have somebody here that's in the game, that knows the players, has got the proper contacts. Yeah. So I expect them to announce director of football in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, hopefully, God forbid, and then it's all down to the manager. But and I can only see 4 options, if I'm honest. Rob Edwards, Mowbray, Pearson, and David Wagner. I can't. There's no other man unless we're going for an unknown that I've never heard of, that you probably have, Chris, in Europe. I honest to God don't see any other choice. The only outside one apart from that is Des Buckingham, but he's had
Buckingham
3/4 of a good season on Oxford.
Buckingham would be a good shout. Buckingham would be a good shout. In fact, I put Buckingham ahead of Mowbray. I put Buckingham. Who else did Eunice name then? Sorry, Mowbray, Pearson, Wagner,
Pearson, and Rob Edwards.
I'd probably put Buckingham out of those. Well, call it 5 with Buckingham in it.
Well, David Prutton on
Edwards,
David Prutton, the Sky.
Great appointment.
David Prutton, the Sky presenter and obviously ex-player, he said Rob Edwards would be the perfect fit. I think Rob Edwards would be a good fit in terms of get his reputation back on track after Luton. Is Luton all down to him? I don't know. I mean, he did great, didn't he, in terms of getting him up. I know what can happen in a club when you come down from the Premier League, how it can be torn to shreds, and it's not always the manager's fault. You know, players get greedy, staff happen, and there's loads of stuff that goes on. So,
good job at Forest Green as well.
He did. So I can see Rob Edwards being a good fit. David Wagner's the emotional choice. We don't need to go over that one. The only thing with Des Buckingham is I think he's good, but did it work at Oxford because he's literally an Oxford legend and been there for 20 odd years? And he only had 3/4 of a good season, didn't he? Really, if we're honest.
Well, he's done well. He's done well elsewhere, though. You can't just discount the work he'd done elsewhere in other countries just because he was in other countries as well. To be fair, and he's won titles in Sydney and with Mumbai or something along those lines.
Yeah, but we're talking levels. We're talking levels.
Yeah, but I mean, you say that
Mumbai compared to League One football, Chris. Come on,
it's still. Like trophies, it's still experience. It's still things on the CV that we don't have, that you don't have, that I don't have.
I won a junior football tournament up in Sunderland, 20 years ago. It don't mean that I'm an EFL League One manager.
Who would be your choice, Downsy? Who would you go for?
League One as well, though.
If you want me to, Mowbray's thrown a proper head shot into it, because
I see it.
No, I don't think he would drop, but I tell you what, it'd be a right coup if we did. Yeah, I do. Don't you?
He hasn't done really well anywhere for a long time. He's done okay at places recently without success, though.
Yeah, but all we need is okay to get us up.
It isn't. No, it isn't. It isn't enough to get up.
No. It's what I'm asking. We're not asking for miracles. We're not asking
for okay at Town next season. We'll see you finish 7th or 8th again and miss out on the playoffs.
There's a big job. It's a big job, is Town, with everything that's gone on. You've got to see it as a new start. Now, do you want? You've also got to think of someone. Obviously, you're going to get a director of football in. You've got to think of someone who's going to work under that model. I know a lot of them do nowadays, but the relationship and the power hierarchy has got to be right.
Yeah, and that's why Rob Edwards is the obvious choice. Right. I think he's my number one.
Okay.
Wagner's obviously the emotional choice. I mean, if Wagner comes back, it's brilliant as well. But if you want me to be non-biased on Wagner, I would go for Rob Edwards. Now, whether he would drop down, that's another thing altogether in it. But
it'd be interesting because I could see him getting something like the Cardiff job.
Yeah, I could as well, Chris. 100%.
Be interesting.
Cardiff's going to be a massive club. Cardiff are a bigger club than Town.
It's going to be a really interesting one. I mean, to be fair, obviously, come get this weekend out of the way, there'll probably be another half a dozen EFL jobs on the market as well across all the divisions.
Managers.
So,
and I agree I agree that the league will be closer next season because you won't have a Birmingham and you won't have a Wrexham, splashing the cash and spending the money. So it will be more concertinaed, but it's whether Town can be in that higher echelon of a concertinaed table. That's what you need,
We'll see. I'm just quickly going to touch on a couple of the comments from Jed, who joins us. He joins regularly from Bondi, from Australia. Yeah. So God knows what time it is.
Hey up, Jed, lad.
Another shrimp on the barbie.
A director of football who doesn't drop $1 million plus in agent fees like the last one.
That'd be good, Jed.
Needs major surgery. And then one final thing, which we'll just touch on quickly as well, is he was asking about the season ticket situation, Downser.
Uh,
How are they going? Any better than last week?
Apparently not. I'll be honest. From what I understand,
That'll do.
there's been no numbers, but I've had it circulated to me that apparently not. So that's why.
Make of
That's-
that what
that-
you will.
That's why I think they're desperate, absolutely desperate to get David Wagner back.
Is it Webber and Wagner?
I don't think Webber a come back, but they're desperate to get Wagner back.
Do you think that's the first choice?
Oh, guys, to sell season tickets, it's the
Yeah,
only choice, mate.
Marketing. Yeah.
It's the only choice marketing wise. I'll be honest, but
It's going to be
yeah,
huge
the-
summer
the-
for your boys.
the massive
Huge summer
problem
for
with
Town.
the massive problem for Wagner for if it goes wrong, that you won't get Town fans blaming Wagner if it goes wrong because he'll
everything
never
will
be
turn to the hierarchy.
exactly. So it could end up being a let's
Yeah.
let's hope it goes right.
Risk on both sides.